53 to US 30. There were 3 earlier crashes in that area, which had everything blocked. Now only the left lane is closed at 30. Traffic still very heavy there. And inbound traffic's a little bit slow, approaching 126 this morning. Farther north, on the inbound Stevenson, there's congestion starting around Cicero. It's 30 minutes from 355 to Lakeshore Drive, outbound 28. On the inbound Kennedy, scattered delays start at Canfield. It's 24 minutes, O'Hare to downtown. Inbound Eisenhower, traffic is tight Manheim, much of the way to Des Plaines Avenue. 31 minutes, 390 to downtown. That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our AM 560 Weather Center. Our forecast with meteorologist Steve Williams.
Partial sun today, the high at 85. Patchy clouds around tonight, low 66. Partly sunny, windy day tomorrow, the high near 86. A sunny, pleasant day on Friday, the high 79. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
It is 71 at O'Hare. Next news, 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM.
As an alum.
Oh, were you featured in it this time?
No.
Have you ever been featured in it?
No. And nor will I ever be, I'm sure. But Kiana Mariah Ross she had an op-ed in it. She's an assistant professor of African-American studies at Northwestern University. That is allegedly one of the better universities in the country. That's what I was told when I went there. I'm not so sure. Although, I mean, the competition to be the best is, sort of the tallest skyscraper in Wichita, to borrow a Buckleyism. I don't know what the best means anymore. She writes that it's time to abolish schools.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's already happening.
Well, she wants to formalize it, and not because of COVID-19. So not reopen schools, not lock down schools, just abolish them. You see,
what are we going to put in its place?
You see, the problem is that racism isn't the right way to understand the unrelenting police killings of black people. The right term is anti-blackness, which illuminates society's inability to recognize our humanity, she writes. Anti-blackness is also a useful frame to consider the myriad other facets of society where there are detrimental consequences for being marked as black in an anti-black world. One of those is schools. Yes, schools, where there are, yes, she said schools, she repeats, where there are often countless dedicated teachers who work tirelessly against the tide of a neoliberal agenda, unwavering in its commitment to privatize the entire enterprise of education and eradicate public schools. These institutions are also sites of anti-blackness, beginning in preschool. Got to get rid of them. Get rid of the schools, because we must talk about black erasure. And that's not a black cover band of erasure. That is misrepresentation in curricula where, for example, students may learn that brutally enslaved Africans were workers who came to the U.S. in the context of immigration. Students may learn to gather for food and fireworks on the 4th of July, a nationally recognized holiday that celebrates the freedom of white men who simultaneously own human beings and furniture. She's actually a professor with this sort of writing? Wow. This does not mean we can also not recognize what we may call black joy in schools, or that we diminish the work of those extraordinary educators who've made it their life's mission to ignite and nurture a passion in our children for lifelong learning. But overall, sorry, not good enough. Schools have historically and contemporarily failed black children, and they need to be abolished. Yeah. Conceptualizing the abolition of schools is about recognizing this spectacular historical moment and building on the foundation to, there's this word again, reimagine educational spaces where black students aren't normalized as other. It's about acknowledging that after decades of school reform, black students continue to suffer. It's about thinking through what it would mean to completely rebuild in ways where black children could learn, weightless, unracialized, and human. Now you know why I don't recommend you send your children to where I spent my formative undergraduate years. For more on this topic, because I think it feeds right into his essay, we're pleased to be joined by Abe Greenwald, who's editor at Commentary Magazine, and he has a piece that's quite expansive and thoughtful. And I think this essay from this African American Studies professor at Northwestern feeds right into what Commentary Magazine called the Great Unraveling earlier in the summer, and how it is metastasizing. Abe Greenwald, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be here.
So, reimagining, all of the olds must go, as is consistent with Maoist thinking. The old way of educating, the old way of policing, the old way of thinking, and so get rid of the schools and start over.
Yeah, that's the nature of a revolution, and there's no question that this is a revolution, and we are in a revolutionary moment. So every institution, according to the lights of the social justice left, must be brought down, must be eradicated, because it is all inescapably, inherently, unreparably racist or anti-black or whatever the latest terminology is. It changes, from week to week.
But revolution, there's a revolution afoot. I mean, no, this is just a bunch of anarchists and some Black Lives Matter folks, and they're throwing a tantrum in some cities, and maybe it's lasting a little bit longer in some cities than others. But I mean, a real revolution, like these people could really take over the country, Abe, come on, it's said.
Well, I'd argue that in some sense they have taken over the country, and that already, and that's to say that they've taken over the culture. And by the culture, I mean entertainment and media. They've taken over the way Americans think about themselves. A new poll indicates that a majority of American citizens believe that the U.S. is systemically racist. And they have gotten people in the halls of power, particularly in the Democratic Party, to buy into their agenda. So when these revolutionary radical leftist ideas are endorsed by institutions, sometimes with the imprimatur of the government, then I'd say yes, this is a revolution. A revolution is not marked by necessarily by guns and warfare, although there has been an increasing amount of that in American cities. But it's marked by a wholesale change in ideas, particularly about the way a country thinks about itself. And in that sense, there's already been a revolution.
But how do you think President Trump is, in his efforts to try and reinstate law and order? Is it working?
Not particularly well, no. I mean, it may work for him electorally, maybe. I don't know that. But no, aside from literally saying the words, "I am your law and order president," I'm not sure that he's done much to get governors and other local officials on board with cracking down on the violence, which is not at all to say that the Democrats, are even interested in doing that. But Trump.
Well, he's tried to send National Guardsmen into states, but a lot of the Democratic overlords won't let him in.
Absolutely true. Oh, no. The Democrats are tremendously to blame. But in any event, Trump still has not done. He's not sort of convened meetings and discussions with governors to try to get them to buy in to a program. He's in fact kind of inflamed things on occasion when he didn't have to.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, perhaps he has, but I don't. You have to speak with some moral clarity about giving over the streets of your city, the business districts of your city, the safety of your constituents to the mob, which is what we've seen happen in Seattle and Portland and Minneapolis and Chicago, and the list goes on, as you know. And so, some tough talk that can be reimagined as incendiary, just the way that they are now reimagining Trump as the instigator of all the violence in Portland or Seattle. I mean, it's just absurdity. But of course, this is the redefinition that is endless when you're dealing with Jacobins, and you actually make in your piece some connection to the French Revolution, some parallels here.
Yeah, there are a lot of parallels in the French Revolution. For example, a huge contributing factor was acts of God outside of any problem that the French had with the regime. There was a frost that ruined national crop yields and sort of destroyed the country. And then that happened again 1 month before the revolution. And so I sort of liken that to what's happened in the U.S. with the pandemic and the shutdowns. I don't think that we would be in this revolutionary moment without these extraneous events that don't really have anything to do with what the revolutionaries are fighting for, but have nevertheless broken the country and weakened people's faith in our institutions. And that makes it a perfect moment for revolution.
You also analogize former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, the George Floyd case, to Gavrilo Princip, who assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand as the spark that led to World War I. Make the connection for us.
Oh yeah, sure. So so Princip, he was this nobody who sort of stepped into history and sparked the First World War. At least if you look at it from a kind of timeline framework, and without the act of Derek Chauvin, who leaned on George Floyd's neck and very possibly killed him, the U.S. would not have been thrown into this. He was also a nobody. And history works that way. When a country is a tinderbox, it only takes the right person or the terribly wrong person in the terribly wrong place to set off a match and blow the whole thing up. And he has become, I would argue, the most consequential figure of the 21st century so far. Without Derek Chauvin, we wouldn't be in this position right now.
It's a sort of a remarkable statement, but yeah, I didn't quite think about it that way. But it is difficult to disagree with at this juncture. I wanted to get your response to this argument that's made, by people who are trying to find some solace that this will come to an end in the near term. That this revolution, as you would term it, is beset by internal contradictions that ultimately will be its undoing. Radical ideas that are not supported by a majority of the population, and even cannibalization going on within the ranks, and so that's going to be its poison pill.
Right. Yeah. No. So like I say in the piece, revolutions always have internally sort of infighting where different revolutionary groups are at each other trying to gain the edge, and we tend to hope here that they will eat each other alive. But in fact, what always happens in revolutions, and this happened in the French Revolution, it happened in the Russian Revolution as well, is that the most fierce, most committed elements come out on top in this infighting. And I think within the past week or so, we're already seeing that here in the U.S. I mean, the revolution has become now. It's a question of people with guns showing up on city streets, or mobs flocking to people eating in restaurants at sidewalks and demanding that they hold up their fists in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter cause. So it's already happening that the fiercest elements are coming out on top. In this revolution.
We live in such a contentious society right now, and how many Americans are really afraid to voice their political views, for fear that they'd be punished professionally?
Yeah, that's a majority. I think it's 62%. Was that what the Cato poll found, or was it 52, something like that? Yeah, but there's a sliver of hope in that, because if most Americans are afraid of voicing their opinions because of they fear professional reprisals, that means that most Americans have some problem with what is going on in the country today.
You write that the counter-revolution won't be won in the streets. How will it be won?
I think it will be won, if it will be won, when Americans outside of the movement itself, Americans who initially thought, well, there's some good things here, and I believe in justice, and I don't want people to get shot, and sort of had the right motivations, but the wrong information. When over time they get a better sense of just how nasty the revolutionaries want to make things in this country. And that could be starting to happen now, which is, I think, why there's some talk of a shift in Trump's and Joe Biden's fortunes in the polls. I think people who were sort of applauding from a middle distance or a distance, applauding the revolution, are now looking at burning cities and assassinations and getting a sense that maybe I was a little too quick to get on board this thing.
You use the
I think
you use the phrase over time. Do you expect that this will be protracted?
Unfortunately, yes. I think it's still probably going to get worse, especially because this is a contentious election year, which feeds into it, and also because the pandemic and the shutdowns still shape our reality. So we're not living in a normal reality in which people would just normally, all right, go to work now instead, or watch sports, or go to events, or all the old norms and or school, exactly, or norms and parameters. Everything is been altered and shifted, and when things are so alien, there's this sense that anything goes, and that the very strangeness, the surrealness of reality in the country at the moment, I think, contributes and extends this revolutionary moment, because nothing is as it normally is.
He is Abe Greenwald. He's the executive editor of Commentary Magazine. Excellent piece, really good piece. I'm going to tweet it out at Dan Proft. Yes, this is a revolution. Abe Greenwald, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.